Good evening, everyone. Welcome. As you're joining, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're joining us from. Add in the WISE chapter if you're joining us from a WISE chapter. It's great to see a few people commenting already. All right. Well, let's get started. It's 5 o'clock. We got a lot to cover today. We've got a great panel. So first of all, again, welcome. One more time, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what chapter you are joining if you're a member of WISE. My name is Megan Harity. I am the event chair for the WISE SF Bay Area chapter. I'm going to put an icebreaker in. So please tell us your favorite or your funniest sports moment from the month of September. So just the last 29 days. And I'll go. Mine is, unsurprisingly to most, that the Miami Heat are in the NBA Finals. Yay! A couple of notes before we get started. First of all, if you are job searching, because I know unfortunately so many of us are, please don't be afraid to use our WISE network. Connect with us on LinkedIn or reach out on social media. And in that same vein, please support each other and connect. If you feel comfortable, drop your LinkedIn or your social handles in the chat. And please follow us, WISE SF Bay Area, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're not a member, please visit our website, either our SF Bay Area website, which I'll drop in the chat in a moment, or of course the National WISE website, and check out a chapter in your area. Okay, a few quick pieces of housekeeping. Our chapter has created a new committee, the Belonging Committee, which will be hosting a chat series for members only. The first discussion will be on October 27th. These chats will be under an hour with discussion focused around a newsworthy article. The first article will be I've Stayed Silent for Way Too Long by Lauren Holiday from the Players Tribune. Registration link will be sent out shortly, so keep an eye for that either via email or on our social channels. Additionally, our next WISE SF event will be early November, and it's just going to be networking, fun, a little scavenger hunt, show and tell. So also keep your eyes out for that, email and social. All right, I'm seeing some members come in here. Oh, yay, Maddie! Thanks for being a fan of the Miami Heat as well. Appreciate that. But keep dropping in your favorite moments. We want to hear from you. We want to know who's watching and who's joining us. All right, well, let's get started. Again, welcome to the State of Sports Marketing and Sponsorship in 2020. We have an amazing panel joining us. One last piece of housekeeping with the panel. At about 5:45 Pacific, 8:45 Eastern time, we will stop for Q&A. And StreamYard allows us to do a live Q&A, so I will drop a link into the chat. And if you want to come on live and ask these amazing women some questions, please follow that link and I will admit you. You need to be logged into Facebook or YouTube to be admitted. We'll probably have time for about 3 live questions. But please also feel free to drop questions into the chat as we go. We're going to keep an eye on those, and if we have time, we will answer those. All right, well, let's get started. I'm going to bring Jessica Smith on, our moderator this evening. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, Megan. How are you?
Good, thank you. We are pleased to have Jessica, our WISE SF Bay Area chapter VP, moderating for us tonight. Jessica has experience with MLS, NHL, MLB, and MILB. For the last 4 seasons, she has been a part of the San Jose Earthquakes as Vice President, Sponsorship, overseeing the club's partnership portfolio, sponsorship revenue stream, and strategic partner initiatives. From here, folks, I'm going to let Jessica take it over.
Thanks, Megan. I really appreciate that. We're so excited to have our panel today, so I'll get right to their introductions before kicking off some of the discussion I know all of us are eager to have as we continue to adapt in the now buzzword of 2020 for many reasons. So to start with the introductions, we have Liz Porter with the Charlotte Hornets. Not only is she the Senior Director of Partnership Activation with the Hornets over the last 4 seasons, but previously brings experience with 13 years with Octagon, overseeing many partner activations and certainly a wealth of knowledge when it comes to activating on behalf of partners in our industry. And I'm excited to hear what she has to share as we all adapt, especially from her seat. Second, we have Katie Cash, who is currently the Senior Director from GMR of Client Consulting and Growth. She's been there for 2 years here in the Bay Area in San Francisco, currently working with Google, HPE, Square, and others, and previously has experience with NKTG, with experience with IBM, FedEx, and StubHub. So again, just incredible wealth of knowledge from 2 different agencies that she can share her expertise with us today. And then our final panelist is Cindy Wang, currently the head of global sponsorships and brand experience with HPE. So she has notable partnerships overseeing the one with the Warriors and then Mercedes Formula One team. And before HPE has stops at HP, Octagon, and Visa as well. So welcome. I almost said congratulations. Congratulations for being here. You guys did it. It feels like that some days, right? I'm sure we can all attest to. So welcome, and everybody, please, as Megan said, ask questions. And also please be patient. Some of us here on the panel, like I have a 1-year-old who may hear at any moment coming in and out of the room. So doing my best to hide from her at this time of evening, but that's not unlike the current work environment during folks' days now either. So I think to start things off, given that we are in such a unique time, certainly in the sponsorship and sports landscape, I'd love to just share, have each of us share what that process has looked like over the last 6 to 7 months. When this all happened in March, what was the process for you guys professionally, and how has it progressed to now? And where are you seeing yourself now, and what are those adaptations? And Liz, why don't we start with you, just as things, kicked off for us in this very unstable year?
Sure. Well, our world changed significantly, particularly in the NBA on March 11th. That was the day that we immediately went into hiatus, and no one really knew what to expect. So on our end, this is when all of that diligent partnership management work that you think is the annoyance of your job, the tracking of all the assets in CRM and the revenues, that's when you're glad that you did all of that, because we immediately started going, okay, what are the scenarios that could happen here? Are we going to get back to playing? But nobody really felt like that was going to happen anytime soon. So we started looking at, okay, from a revenue perspective and for our partners, what's outstanding and what do we owe them, and how do we get to work in bringing these contracts to fruition for the year? And then how are we dealing with just this uncertainty? So our immediate process was to just immediately work with our partners and say, hang on for a second, just roll with us for a minute. The league is being extremely diligent in figuring out what next steps are, but let's not do anything rash. And we're going to present you with outstanding value, and we're just going to keep you in the loop. And then as things developed, we started working with our partners to come up with interim plans. And then when the NBA rolled out their plan, we were able to really kind of finalize things. So it was a gradual process, but a new one, and one that I think has made everyone in sports, on the team side, on the sponsor side, on the agency side, much more resilient, much more flexible. And it's a time like none other in my career, that's for certain.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Katie, what was it like from your seat?
I laughed to myself, first of all, when you said 6 to 7 months. Have no idea how it's been that long. It feels like 6 days or 6 years, kind of all at the same time. So it's been pretty interesting. We're really looking at the way the world is adapting, not only just us as an agency, right? And so in any crisis, there's kind of this recognizable life cycle or lifespan, right? You're looking at the response phase, the recovery and revival. And I think we all really hoped that we were going to be much farther along than we currently are at this point. But, we're now moving out of this response phase and into this recovery phase. The sports industry is doing the same. So we as an agency are following suit. And so I don't think we can really say there's any stability right now. However, the situation isn't really changing day to day, which is a nice change in pace. There's a bit more predictability, so we're better able to kind of plan our future. But as far as the agency side of things goes, and at GMR, for years, we've really been building our suite of services around the needs of clients, and the world was already going virtual. So we've been investing over the last couple of years, obviously, in a very robust social content team, digital innovation. So when we were forced to go virtual, we were ready. It wasn't too big of a change, at least from the agency side of things. But Cindy and I have worked hand in hand, obviously, through the last 6 months, and I'll let her talk a little bit more maybe about the partnerships.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, thank you. I guess it's to me. So from a brand perspective, the world changed, and it was very personal to me because I was literally in Melbourne getting ready for the start of the Formula One season. We were down there for the very first time, working with colleagues in a new market, and we had a fantastic program planned around the start of the Formula One season, the race in Melbourne. And then the morning that we were supposed to, our program was starting, they closed the race. And that was just kind of like the beginning, right? Then we had to unravel the whole event, trying to figure out sort of, what to do with the people who already came, how we were going to, essentially pack up, shut down, how we were going to get home. And so that was March, the second week of March. And, everything that we planned for the year just pretty much went out the door because our world came to a complete halt. We're involved in NBA. We're involved in Formula One. We're involved in Premier League. We're involved in Formula E. We're involved in theme parks with our partnership with Disney. And nothing was happening. Our partners were shut down because the world essentially shut down. And when you build your marketing plan and your activation plans around there being live events, right? Either because you're, hosting customers, you're creating experiences, or you have a content plan that is around events happening and things happening, and all that goes away. Like very quickly, when you're sitting as the, head of sponsorships for a major brand, you're thinking, what am I going to do now? And how can I still activate the partnerships, continue to deliver value back to the organization, to our partners, to our customers, to our employees, when all of that has stopped. So very, very quickly, we had to pivot. And I think that's the second sort of, word of the times, right? Pivoting. So we pivoted really, really quickly to a content plan where we worked with our partners to develop very timely and relevant and appropriate content that was about sort of us understanding what everyone's going through. We're all in it together, and we are here to help. That was in support of a broader brand message that HPE, was sort of putting out in the marketplace, that we as a company are here to help our partners, our employees, our customers, our vendors from around the world. And so we just dovetailed into that. And I mean, on a dime, our team turned and pivoted, and with the help of, our stellar team at GMR and all of our wonderful partners who went on this journey with us. I mean, we cranked out so much content in a really, short period of time. It was exciting. But, we're now, I think, sort of coming out of that. We're focused more on content, and we've become de facto virtual experience experts.
Oh, exactly right. I think, hearing you guys share that, it's so obvious that every single person will remember where they were when things shut down. And it's such a moment in our life that we'll always look back to, and just the weight of that and the seriousness of that. It was interesting from my perspective at the Quakes in that moment. I won't forget that it was just very apparent that everybody was a human in that moment, right? It really had nothing to do with what we were going to say to partners. It had nothing to do with how our brand was going to be seen. It was, hey, you guys need to go home. We need to all be healthy. We need to figure this thing out. And then we'll take a breath. And to your point, Cindy, I think pivot from there. And with that, you know, I think, you know, I'd love to get your guys' take on communication. You know, for me, I was so used to seeing my team every single day at, you know, the live events. We're hosting in suites, we're hanging out with folks, we're doing in-person meetings, we're flying on planes to see our clients, you know, we're building those relationships that way, to immediately we're all doing what we're doing right this second, where we're hiding from children and pets and trying to find space that has normal lighting, which is nearly impossible because there's 5 different platforms that all do the lighting differently, right? Like there's so many small steps that have taken place. But I can also say, I think there's some positives to the communication. Certainly, I'm just interested to hear that experience for you guys, whether it's your own team, certainly your personal life, feel free to share that, or things like this and what the industry is transforming to do as well.
You know, I'll start because, you know, for me, you know, like what you said, the face-to-face, you know, interaction, relationship development, you know, just kind of seeing people. I mean, we're all kind of people, right? You're in this industry and you're not so much a hermit or introvert. You like to be around people. And, you know, my team, you know, we're really close. We're close with our, you know, partners at GMR, and we've developed really strong and deep and close relationships with all of our partners because we see them all the time. And I think that, you know, over the last 6 months, you know, communication has still been very frequent, you know, just a different format. And what I have found is that, you know, we're not sort of starting with business right away. People are taking time to just, you know, hey, how are you? And just being really interested in just people's well-being and how they're doing and how they're coping. And so, you know, maybe you have a meeting that's an hour, you spend the first 15, 20 minutes of it, you know, just catching up and just, you know, getting really personal. And I think because we've been able to do that, your relationships are even like deeper, sort of coming out of this. And then, you know, as a team, you know, we you know, definitely try to, you know, separate, and it's not, you know, all business, you know, all the time. And, you know, that's just been really nice to, you know, get to spend the time to get to know people a little bit more, right? And understand sort of how they're feeling and what we're going through, and we're all in it together. So I don't know, I think I'm coming out of this feeling a lot closer to everyone that I work with.
I second Cindy. I couldn't have said it better, but this has just been so humanizing. I mean, truly, you felt like you knew your partners and you had a great working rapport. And now all of a sudden you've seen their child run through the background naked on the way to, you know, a bath. It's just, you see these elements of people's lives and you have these funny memories now with them. And there's such a sense of we're all in this together. I mean, truly, a lot of things have happened in the world, but whether, you know, you're working internationally or whether you're working here, it's everyone is really experiencing this in some way. So I think as everyone acknowledges that from the start, you find out how the person is first, safe, healthy, how this is affecting their life. Then you find out how it's affecting their business, because you can really have frank conversations now. You know, it's you're not afraid to say, how's the business doing? You know, it's not like it's not a taboo question. It's truly, how is this affecting you? How is your how are your goals changing on a day-to-day basis? And it just makes, in my world, communication much more efficient and personal all at the same time. And I feel like I've had more FaceTime than ever with partners who it may have been a phone call or an email, and now we set up a Zoom, and you know how they decorate the inside of their home. I mean, it's just this, it's a great personal experience. And I think if we're going to take something positive from being in this all together, that has been a really, really great thing for me and for our team.
I echo what both of you guys said. And, you know, we have a satellite office in San Francisco, but we obviously work closely with our colleagues in Milwaukee and Charlotte and LA and New York. And this has made our connection to them even stronger, right? We used to have a little bit of envy. I think that they got to have the water cooler talk. Now we're all on an even playing field in the way that we communicate. I do think I'd be remiss to say, though, there wasn't a moment where it was a bit, we were a bit inundated, I would say, with meetings and calls, and everyone was a bit panicked at the beginning, and we were over rotating, we were over communicating, it was constant check-ins, it was, you know, maintaining this constant connection. And I think some people felt, you know, burnt out. There was some studies that it's no longer that your workday is actually extending longer at home now. So I think I'm happy to say that, at least for me personally, and I think our team and I think our client teams as well, it's much more balanced. I just feel there's a bit more levity on the calls, even if it's a dire situation, even if the business isn't doing so great, there's just some sort of perspective, and people are trying to find that balance between personal and professional. And so, our team still does coffee once a week, and as an agency, we do happy hours, because in an agency, one of the other things is, as hard as you try, you're often quite siloed based on your account team. And I know, internally at brands, you're working with your certain departments. And so for us, it was like, how do you get in touch with those resource teams? How do you get in touch with the teams who are working on a separate account? And so we've looked at ways, we've done kind of phone trees and happy hours and cooking classes. And so I've just been really pleased to see how everyone's kind of shown up.
Yeah. One quick thing to add on this too. I don't know if Katie and Cindy, you've had this as well, but on the team side of things, we've been communicating across the aisle with other teams in the NBA. We've had calls with NFL activation teams. Everyone is just looking for best practices and truly just, hey, let's commiserate. What problems are you seeing? How are you solving? How are you tracking make goods? And there has just been this unprecedented openness to sharing and just this real feeling that, a high tide will raise all ships. Everyone that works in sports entertainment wants to be in sports entertainment because we're passionate and we, there's competitiveness, certainly. I mean, that's also why we're here. But there's just been so much across the aisle conversation that it's really been a great thing. And I hope that that's something that continues once we are out of the COVID period.
And I think the conversation's happening interleague, but we're also seeing across league conversations that are taking place, right? So with HPE, we recently did something with the Warriors and the Tottenham Hotspur around their Discover conference in June. It had the leaders of business across their entire portfolio coming together for a discussion about, the business of sport or perform under pressure, and seeing this message that was able to kind of bring together the whole portfolio, I thought was really exciting. So it's neat to see best practices being shared that way too.
And then, on the brand side, I mean, from the brand perspective, we're impacted in a different way, right? When, what you build your plans around sort of all, shuts down, how are you handling it? And so, I've been able to talk, pretty openly with, colleagues at other brands, just, with relationships, with leagues and teams, and just, how they're handling it, how they are pivoting and what they're doing and best practices. And I feel like people are just, as you said, Liz, just sharing, in a way that, they haven't really shared before. And I think, people are finding time and making time, for those conversations and those connections that maybe have nothing to do with sort of their immediate to-do list of the day, but just kind of reaching out to share information and to, seek information.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is that there's not really information being fed down. There's no right way to do what we're doing. Like, we're all figuring it out in real time. Every league is handling a little bit differently. What are the pros and cons of that? Every team, every market is affected differently, right? And then we all have to stay close and really help each other through this moment on all sides of the table. So I would definitely say that's a positive too. Liz and Katie, I can relate to the burnout. When we first started, we would have team calls every morning, and that was so tremendous to see, the staff that, I lead all together. And then it got to a point where I took a week off in July, a week off just to really sit around my house and take walks in my neighborhood. But to come back, and I was like, okay, that's it, guys. Like, twice a week, like, we are on 6 hours of video calls plus a day. Like, we need to shake this up a bit now that this is our norm for quite some time. So that's, I think, an important negative and adaptation to reinforce there as well. Katie and Cindy, you guys, mentioned a little bit, and Liz, I know that this word will hurt your ears because I know it's hurting mine. Make goods, right? Very real. At one point, I was saying make good the make good in a certain scenario. But can you guys share with the properties that you're working with, what has that process been like, from your side of the table, and what are you seeing, that's effective as you guys are using those same platforms in different ways versus what you had previously planned, as you said, through mostly live events?
I mean, I think, for me, and this is just, from my perspective, I didn't feel like it was right to sort of pound on the partners' doors to say, hey, there's, these 10 things you didn't deliver during this time. And so that is a value of X, right? Like, I felt like during this time, the partners were all so willing to work with us and be so flexible. When we were working on our big, social media campaign, when we were working on our, huge virtual customer conference and all the other programs, we tapped into our partnerships, at like an unprecedented rate. We asked a lot of them, and we asked a lot of them of things that we'd never done before, and tapped people and parts of the organization and, assets that weren't necessarily included in our package, right? And what I found was, people were just so willing to work with us. I mean, we weren't going back and looking at a contract and saying, okay, well, you use this, and so we're going to trade out, 3 of those. And I think because of that, and because, we didn't sort of say to them, look, I want my money back, or I want, this calculation of value add, I knew that we would true up in the end. And it would be fine. And so with all of the partners, I do have to say that the process was delightful and fair. And nobody was, trying to sort of, take more of, kind of this contractual asset pie, but really like, okay, these are the things that we know that we, couldn't deliver for you. Can we carry it over to the next year? Or, here's a evaluation. One of our partners, went through the exercise, on their own to say, okay, this is, the value of all of the things that, weren't delivered to you. We'll roll that into an activation fund that we can tap into. And I felt like that was very, very fair. And so, we approached this less of a negotiation, but truly as a partnership, because we all sort of want the partnership to continue and to be successful. And if we're activating our partners, it's great for them. And so I was just really pleasantly surprised that it was as delightful of a process as it was.
Yeah, I agree. I feel, over the last 10 years, we've transitioned from the word sponsorship into partnership. And I think it's not just a change in terminology. I think it really is a change in perspective. I think brands and properties are working closer than ever. And really the properties are wanting, they have the brand, their best intentions in mind. And so, Cindy said that they want us to activate. And Liz, tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's not great to have unused assets, right? Sponsorship is no trick. They don't want to end the year with, "Ooh, we got away with, they didn't use all their tickets, or the signage didn't." It's not good for anyone. So, just as Cindy said, with many of our clients, their partners were very proactive in coming and saying, here's some alternative thinking, here are some other ways that we can make good without us needing to use that word. But yeah, as Cindy said, I can think across all of our partners, we have been humbled and surprised by how easy and collaborative the process has really been.
That's great. And Liz, I mean, from your perspective, what does this process look like, right? Because we go from a whole new inventory sheet to an extent, like what can we actually put our partners on? Like, what does this look like? How is that process?
Well, it wasn't even what assets do we have? It's what can we create for the now, and what Cindy and Katie said is exactly how it should work. It really is a partnership. It's not a sponsorship. It's not, hey, no one's going to see this sign, so now we owe you, $2,500 per game. That's not how we looked at it. We had a value, but then we went to the partners on our side. And again, first it was, how are you? How is the business? And then it was, what are your goals now? Because the thing that we're also, we're talking a lot about COVID, but in the midst of all of this, social justice became an enormous conversation as well. And one that, a conversation that we needed to have. So in the middle of this, we're launching all kinds of new initiatives, and partners who wanted to lean in on those things, there was incredible opportunity to be a part of great new things. So it was finding out what their new goals were, what they wanted to promote. Was it, we're here for you, like healthcare partners during COVID? Was it a small business locally that was saying, hey, we don't have any customers going through our door. So we had to figure out what they were going through and then not be prescriptive, but really collaborative. One of my favorite sayings is people believe in a world they help build. And COVID was this unprecedented time where people really wanted to talk sponsorship as well, because believe it or not, while our business was in peril and was extremely challenging, we were still probably the most fun conversations people were having every day. And that was a strange joy. And I think we lost sight of that a lot, but our partners would get on the phone and go, oh, tell me what's happening in the NBA bubble. Tell me something fun. So we really had this opportunity to build with our partners and give them fun ideas, and they really wanted to make time to brainstorm with us because there were incredible things happening in the world and cool conversations to be a part of that through sports and entertainment you can really tie your brand to and tell some amazing stories. So again, it wasn't prescriptive. You lost this sign, now you get this, 2 minutes of courtside signage next year. It was, what are you trying to achieve? Let's build a program for you, or let's put you on this incredible thing we're doing. And sounds like Cindy and Katie are partners that I would, let's work together because you guys sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's kind of like the jolt that we needed, right? And I mean, we're stepping here, but I think oftentimes asset mixes were looking stale, and there's very limited innovation in what's coming next, in what partners and what brands want. And we had to figure it out this time. And so I think the next contract process, right, when people are going back, these are going to look very different. And I love that about it. And just as you said, like leading with purpose, it's the way that sponsorships were already heading. And now we can't avoid it. And I love that it's being ingrained, entwined. It has to be a building block now for every partnership and every sponsorship.
Well, one of our partners had actually made a comment to us recently that because we've tapped them for so many different things, that they've, flexed, they're working with us in a way that's really different than how they would have normally worked with partners before. And we've helped them connect to parts of their organization that they never would have talked to or worked with before. And so, I mean, for the people who are working on the partnership side, I think it's been, a great sort of professional experience to flex sort of different muscles and, reach out to different people and learn, different things. So I do think that, you can get into this, hamster wheel of like, okay, here's the framework of what, a sponsorship, contract looks like. There's these, rights, there's branding, there's hospitality, there's appearances, you can rattle off like what the categories are, and, it can be stale. And so, I absolutely agree with what Katie said, like, with the partners and, their experience that they've had with the properties, the experience that they've had over the last few months. I mean, they're going to go into partnerships, I think, differently the next time around, or, sort of from this point forward.
Yeah, we're in renewals right now, and it's the ability to be more creative. It's absolutely, there are partners that never wanted to talk digital because they were very old school. We like in-game, and now you're like, well, do you want to talk digital a little bit? Like, let's dip a toe. And everyone's so open to these conversations, and it's really exciting because, trust me, on the team side, we don't want to do the same old thing either. We want to innovate. We want to make SBJ and with a groundbreaking activation. So yeah, we're game for it, and it's been a creative exercise that's been very worthwhile.
And that kind of rolls into the next question. I think we're all in this moment, right? So we've adapted to what our environment has served us to date and how we're activating this year, and how we're reaching our audiences and making sure that we're using our platforms, in such a unique time in history for many reasons. And but what comes next? How are people looking for new sponsorship revenue? How are renewals going, and what does that process look like? Cindy and Katie, can you guys, speak a little bit? What would your advice be for somebody, in 2020 on how they're approaching your brand to have business conversations, or is now simply not the time? I think, there's a variety of answers, certainly depending on the industry and the folks that you're chatting with, but would love your perspective. And Liz, I'd love, even additional details as you guys are putting together what renewals look like in such an interesting time, what that's like as well.
Yeah, I think the renewal conversation, is a different one, because in a renewal situation, what you're able to do is be really, really creative with, the property, right? Where now that we know that there's this whole sort of other area that we can tap into, Digital is going to, virtual experiences and, access and rights, digital platforms, access to people to appear in, videos and talks and, experiences. I mean, those kinds of things I think are going to take, a sort of more prominent role in partnership structures going forward versus, the traditional kind of branding things that might have been more heavily weighted in the past. So I think for renewals, the experience that you have, you're able to kind of push the partners to be, a little bit more creative. I think new is a little bit different. And I would say for, our company and, for the sort of enterprise IT industry and some other industries, it's probably not the right time. But I would say, there are industries that are flourishing during this time. And I would follow the money, right? If you're in sponsorship sales, I would follow the money, right? I would go and hunt in industries that are flourishing, companies that are flourishing, look at stock price, market cap. I mean, just look at that and go after, those companies because, now they're finding themselves in a situation where, they might want to talk about, their brand and their purpose and, their sort of message, using alternative platforms. And, I believe that, sports entertainment, is a fantastic platform, for brands. And I would just go where the money is.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies are obviously wary of the future and a second wave, but I do think it's the time to lean in. And when I say lean in, I really mean from a relationship building standpoint, now more than ever, right? As you're talking about how when you're talking with your current sponsors, how are you feeling? How are you doing? We need to have a greater long-term vision of what this partnership could be like. I also agree with Cindy that the brands who are thriving is probably the wrong word, but are seeing the capital and the revenue benefits from being locked at home. You're talking the in-home gym equipment, grocery delivery, home improvement. Sure, follow the money, but we have to be proactive in the thinking. And now more than ever, it has to be solution oriented and it has to be led with purpose because no one is going to take your call just because of some brand awareness play or, maybe we'll get a couple more products off the shelf. That's not what people are looking for. And so I think the approach has to be very different. And then I think from, for the salespeople out there, and if you can make it a bit more enticing, I guess, as you go after a new partnership, just as we talked about, contracts are going to look completely different. So I really think putting in a midterm evaluation, because if we look back a year ago and looked at our asset mix, what we had then is maybe not applicable or relevant now. And so I think the ability to, after a year of coming back to the new normal and figuring out like, what does this world look like? What is valuable to us? And maybe having some flexibility there would be helpful. Maybe looking at a shorter deal term as well is not, again, what sponsorship sales wants to hear. But I just think there has to be some room for flexibility as we try and navigate the next year or 2 years.
Yeah. Everything Cindy and Katie said, absolutely. A little bit from sitting on the team side, yes, everyone is, everyone knows where the money is, and it's smart guidance. Our sales guys are hitting a lot of the categories that are actually flourishing during COVID, and people are having conversations because sports is still one of the great escapes. There's a lot going on in the world, and people are clamoring for live sports. So it's definitely still an industry where great opportunity for the right partners. As far as on the renewal side of things, which is a portion of the business on the activation side that I manage, complete flexibility. I mean, it's key. I come from the agency side, so I might think about this a little bit differently, but I just try to put myself in the partner's shoes. This is a really strange time to be signing a new partnership deal. So when we're looking at things, if a partner has a particular set of assets that they absolutely love, but we realistically know, hey, this might not happen in year one. We're writing in different scenarios, different triggers. And then just in working with us, they also know we're going to be flexible. And hopefully we prove that during the make good process. But truly understanding that, scenario A is the exact package you want, but this incredible package in a socially distant world where we don't have fans in an arena, scenario B can drive this message that you want further. than just having your fans in the building, which we know you love. So it's really writing in complete flexibility to give people comfort. But then on the back end, also knowing that even if scenario B for some reason blows up, because, hey, I think we all know anything can happen, it's partnership, not sponsorship. We'll be there for you. We're going to figure it out together. As long as we're clear on what your goals are and what we can do, we'll find a way. So yeah, it's just, hopefully your relationship is good enough that people will take a chance and re-sign, and shorter term deals, something that of course is that we're dealing with. And yeah, you just always want to over deliver, and being flexible in the long term will help people want to stay with you.
Yeah, sorry, I suggested, Liz. Don't blame me.
What did you say? Sorry.
Shorter deal terms.
Oh no, I mean, it's the truth. We're here to be honest. You know, if you're standing in a partner's shoes, you have to understand. I mean, times are strange. Things that would have never flown before. Hey, let's give it a try. You know, we're all in this together. We're not, no sports team is here to take your money and end a relationship. These relationships we want to foster for, you know, the dream is to have a partner that's been with you for 20 years. And that's not a place you get to if the minute things go bad, you become inflexible and run away with the money. So yeah, flexibility and really just working with each other and being open about what the future could hold.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's exactly how we're viewing it, and certainly the process that we're going through as well on the Quake side. And Katie, I thought what you mentioned in new partnerships or existing partnerships having purpose, the reason why is more important than ever right now, right? And the association together and why you're partnering and what that feels like to not just the consumer, but just people is so important to get right. And I think, you know, through all the updated content and ability to tell stories, there's a better platform for it than it's ever existed before. So I think, you know, collectively, right, we have to be purposeful with why we're even reaching out in partnerships. And then certainly with the partners we have, we need to be purposeful in what we're continuing to create and adapt with together, because everyone's business is shifted. It's not just yours. Every single person is shifting by the day, by the month, and certainly, you know, all throughout this year. I'm going to do one more question before we open it up to the group. From a hiring perspective, right? So obviously this year has been challenging for our industry in so many ways, but for those folks joining us tonight, from a hiring perspective, what advice do you have in the market for those looking for employment right now?
Nice start since I graduated in the recession. So I think I can speak to it. First of all, I hear you and I feel you for those who are going through this kind of crazy time. For those who not only are like just graduating, but those who have lost a job during the time. I think probably I'll start with the hardest one to swallow, which is to be patient. Again, these are unprecedented times and things are going to take time, but I definitely say be hungry and be humble. The first job is not going to be your dream job. You don't get it by finding a job posting online and sending it in. These days, even in LinkedIn outreach isn't going to do that. So you need to be creative. You need to have conviction in your strengths and really be proactive in your outreach. And then my only other suggestion would be, while you wait, is upskill yourself. So, you know, are you studying SEO or digital marketing, or maybe you are just doing some research around what virtual conferences look like, because that's a new avenue. So I would say make the most of your time, but yeah, be hungry and be humble is probably my favorite.
I mean, I think it's just such a good time to invest, and that's the word, right? Invest in yourself and your skills. Invest in nurturing relationships. I mean, it's a great time, you know, to kind of reach out to your network, you know, and your network to, you know, build and establish relationships. And just, you know, for that's, you know, that you don't really have an immediate end game, but cultivating those relationships. And if you can bring something, you know, to the table because you've invested in, you know, upskilling yourself or being an expert in one area, and you're sort of able to, you know, offer back some advice, you know, I think that's great. You know, I also, you know, started in this industry when there was like, you know, just this whole like economic collapse. And I, you know, I tell this story, and so some people in the audience have already heard it, but, you know, I, you know, had a, you know, undergrad degree and, you know, a graduate degree. And I started all over because, you know, I'd lost my job and needed to figure out, you know, what to do. And I started off as an intern after, having, education and work experience. I started all over, and there was an opportunity to be an intern at Visa, working in the sponsorships, team. And that's, where I started. So was humble and did it, paid my dues. And then as the recovery, kind of slowly happened, then I was able to get my shot. So, offer out your services, that way too. Just, try any way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. Again, second, Katie and Cindy, humble, work your network. One thing I would add is, when you get the job, be kind to everyone and be somebody people want to work with. Because what I'll tell you about when I got my last job was my call to get my resume in front of the right person was to one of my former interns who had a job at the Hornets. And we had a great working relationship. I had total respect for his work. He was great. I reached out and said, hey, you're over at the Hornets now. I'm applying for this job. And he remembered me as someone that people would want to work with and someone who had given him respect. And he put my resume on the right person's desk. So, we talk about networking. Don't just network with, a VP or an SVP that might be in your, check in on people that you've worked with who are doing interesting things that maybe were, working for you or working on a team or working on an associate team at your agency. But really work that network. And in those networking conversations, particularly if you have some downtime right now and are looking, if you've had a great conversation with someone, rather than continuing cold outreach, ask that person to connect you to someone else. Just during COVID, I've tried to make a real effort to respond to more of the LinkedIn, hey, can we grab a quick 15? And I've just said, this is hard times. And I absolutely, and I have more time now because I'm at home. And I've made 2 job recommendations for people I had random LinkedIn conversations with, but they were passed to me by someone else. And truly, sports is a smaller world. I think most people on this panel know sports is a very small world. And if your reputation is great and you've been a person that people want to work with, people are so happy to support you and pass you on for the right opportunities. And don't only network above you. Network everywhere, because if people have loved working with you and there's a job open on their team, you might have made an impression on someone you never thought would help you, but it comes from all directions.
And if I can just piggyback off one of your comments, because I think you're right, this is such a small world in sports. And so what I'm trying to do and encourage my team, and I think probably everyone on this phone already does it already, is but expanding your network. We are such a closed network, looking for more diverse hires, right? Looking for more diverse networking opportunities. Who are the colleges that you're speaking with when you're hiring? Like growing that small world, it will forever feel like a small world, but I think we can probably do some outreach for some more diverse groups to kind of enter into the circle of trust.
100%. And we need to be proactively having those conversations, because I think if we all look at our backgrounds and think of how we got to where we are, everyone has these connections that are so natural to us that you forget you have them. And there are a lot of people who have tremendous ideas, incredible potential, but they might be first-generation college grads and they don't have this network of people who maybe know someone. And we really, really need to be finding ways to have connecting conversations to bring these new people in our sports industry into the fold, because innovation and ideas have to come from new points of view. And I think it's up to us to really make a proactive effort to find those people.
Absolutely. We are going to hop into some questions. And just so you guys are aware, look in the comments box if you're wondering how to submit those questions. There's a link that's posted from SF Content Wise, and then it'll be placed in the waiting room, which our very own Megan will be choosing from.
All right. Thank you, ladies, so much. This has been amazing. Hopefully you've been able to see some of the comments people have been putting up there. Loving some of the quotes and what you all have been sharing. So we've got a couple of people in here already. So I'm going to bring in a gentleman, which we always love having a gentleman with us. So
Rachel.
Right? Exactly. So let me bring Everett Watford in for his question. Welcome, Everett. If you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I am an ally, but actually a woman told me about the Wise Network, so that's why I'm here. My question, Yes. My question is, what are some of your tips for cold outreach? And do you guys have a preference, whether it's through LinkedIn or through email? And thank you for your insights today.
Sure. I'm fine with cold outreach personally. I find LinkedIn to be a good place for that. Sometimes when I get an email, I start to wonder, like, how did someone get my email? But LinkedIn, I think it's fine. For me, at least, I don't have time because I think when you work in sports, you tend to get a lot of them. But if somebody's got an interesting, hey, I saw this, I saw that the team is doing this, would love to talk with you. Yeah. If I have time, I'd love to have a 15-minute conversation. So just be prepared that you won't always get a response, but don't stop reaching out because people will respond. And if you make a great impression, I think you'll, it'll pay benefits.
I think I agree with Liz. LinkedIn is probably the best for cold outreach. And when you do that, try not to just, send a form note, like make it personal, like, hey, I demonstrate that you know something about the person that you're reaching out to and not just, hey, my name is, I'd love to connect with you. Here's my email, right? So make it personal. Show that you've done a little bit of homework and there's a reason why that you're reaching out to the folks.
Great. Thank you so much, Everett. We appreciate it. All right. We have another question. I'm going to bring in Corla Carpenter. Corla, I hope I'm saying your first name right. Are you surprised? Sorry.
Actually, I'm watching the Las Vegas Aces.
Yes, Coraline.
I like that. Supporting the WNBA. Fantastic.
I know. Yay. Okay, so I live in Las Vegas, and we are finally not taboo with sports, and we have something other than UNLV, no offense. And we're making a mark. We've got everything from tennis, UFC, soccer, football, WNBA. Okay, so this is uncharted territory for us. I have tried my best to make get into social groups and social networks I'm in the WISE chapter here. What else can, this is untouched territory, can we do either collectively or individually? I will be matriculating to law school to be a sports attorney to kind of say, hey, I'm here. I know we have to get creative, but and we can get away with a lot more in Las Vegas than we can in other areas of the country. Just things. What can we do?
Just to be clear on your question, what can you do as a potential professional within the field? Or sorry,
so this is my second career. So I know this, I don't necessarily want to start out as, I'm too old for this, as a person. What do you call those people, those mascots? I can't, for be a mascot. So I understand I have to build my way up, but professionally speaking, where can I logically start in this, again, uncharted territory to say, hey, I'm here. I know this community. I have something to offer and bring.
Yeah,
It sounds like.
Go ahead. I was going to say.
Yes, you go. No, you go.
Yeah, I mean, building relationships with those organizations or folks within them is your best bet. I think for me, as a first-generation college graduate, I had no idea what jobs actually existed in this industry. My job, I would have thought was make-believe, right? Overseeing sponsorships and marketing and how it all works. And there's just a lot to learn. And there's actually a lot of positions that you would just be surprised are needed, and especially from outside hires that aren't come in from the ground up and work your way up in the industry. There's a ton of room for talent in different arms of each organization. So I would just be diligent as you can about, if you're specifically targeting Las Vegas, really doing your best to build relationships with people in those specific organizations, with a sports coalition that might be local, what type of events are coming, what venues are hosting events that you might be able to be a part of. Sports is much more than just teams, brands, and properties. There are so many other avenues and positions that this industry needs to thrive. So that would be my 2 cents in how to break in.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We've had a lot of questions actually about that. Does Liz, Katie, Cindy, do you guys want to add anything?
What Jess said was great. And I will say, working on the team, so I came from an agency side, which I highly recommend as an entry into sports, because obviously it's my path. So I'm partial to it because it's the only one I've known, but it really gave me the insight at the jump to say what the brand wants is key. So thinking like someone on brand really helps you, I think, when you get to the team side, to understand objectives and how to deliver on those. And if your entire goal is partnerships and partnership revenue, you have to understand the mentality of why people are spending money. But coming over to the team side, just as Jess said, there are jobs I didn't know existed, and I work in sports. I mean, we have an entire team that just does game entertainment. The stuff they do is crazy. I mean, they're pricing T-shirt Gatling guns, and it's just so interesting. There really is a job for everyone and a place for everyone in sports. And I would just say, look at the venues, look at the properties, depending on if you're a venue managed team or vice versa. Look at the agency path. And it sounded like she was interested in being a sports attorney. So there are agencies where it's a combination of consulting, and my old agency, we did athlete representation. So there really is a place for everyone. I would just do research on really unique sports jobs.
And I think, I mean, just to your point, I mean, there are jobs in the sports industry for everyone, and, you know, things like IT. So, you know, we work a lot with, you know, the folks in the IT department, or, you know, data and analytics. I mean, what teams, what brands, you know, want now, you know, is data and getting insights from the data. And so if you're comfortable, you know, with numbers and data and analysis, you know, there's a place for you in this industry, because we are hungry for that. And so, you know, I think that the industry is small, but there's so many different facets that you really can find a role for, you know, all types of skill sets. And just because you start in one area, you know, doesn't mean that's where you stay. I mean, the industry is also very fluid. So, I mean, just be open.
Yep.
Great, thank you. And one last question from Kevin, who has joined us from Wise DC in the past. And I'm going to put his question up here. And while I read it, what were the top 2-3 things your partners wanted this past season before COVID in their deals beside ROI?
Community. I don't know if that's for everyone. I've heard, but, you know, we talk about why you do the deal and purpose. On our side, most of the big brands, even our small people, really want to invest in community and do things that are impactful for the places that they live, or do things to lift up marginalized communities. So for me personally, it's been incredibly rewarding to have that be what partners want, because you feel like I work in sports, but I also get to make a difference in my community. I would say that's the number one thing that we see.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely kind of within the same vein, but leading with purpose and the sense of legacy and what are we going to leave behind. Liz, you talked about how great it would be to have a partner that was there for 10 years, but should you exit after 10 years, what is the impact that you made, right? Not only on that community, on the team, but on the sport as a whole. How are you helping shape the future of that sport? How are you shaping the future of fandom? I think there's a lot to be said for what is still there when you leave the room.
Great. Thank you. Well, ladies, unless one of you wants to add anything, which please do if you'd like, we're going to wrap up for the evening. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. And I hope you've seen the comments. People have been saying inspiring and loving the quotes. So folks, please post on social and share your takeaways and connect with these amazing women in sports, amazing people in sports. And thank you, Liz. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Jessica. We wish you all the best of luck, and we hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. This was great.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, as I slowly take them off, I'm going to bring in Ariel Figgenbaum, our president for WISE. Real quick, Ariel, before I let you add it, I just wanted to post the event calendar for WISE. Please check it out. I'm dropping that in the chat right now. Those are WISE events all around the country, but I will let Ariel take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you to all of our panelists and to Jessica for moderating. That was fantastic. I work in partnerships as well, and it was just really inspiring to hear from all of the different angles of sponsorships how people are making it work and working together. And I mean, I work with Jessica, and she really practices what she preaches. She is been so flexible, and I know so many of our partners and so many of the partners across the country are just really just making the most out of it and really taking this as an opportunity to prove what great partners they are. So I posted my LinkedIn in the chat if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about partnerships or job questions. And as Megan mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, please always reach out to us if you're looking for jobs or looking for a connection at a company in the Bay Area. That is one of the things this network is here for, and we will respond to you and we will try to help. And then the last thing that I have, which I'm going to pull up the information so I don't totally fudge it, is we have elections for the 2021 year starting October 1st. So you will be getting an email later this week to people who are in our email queue. And if you're not, I highly recommend joining WISE so that you can continue learning about these opportunities and having opportunities to lead in the Bay Area. So elections start October 1st. Nominations will close November 16th. And our new board of directors term starts January 1st, which includes a 1-month transition of onboarding. In terms of open positions, we have openings for a secretary, membership, and communications. And secretary really is the one who kind of makes all of it happen from a board position, organizing our elections, organizing our monthly meetings, and making sure that our chapter is staying on track. Membership really works with the people in our community, with you, making sure that we are delivering on what you're looking for, making sure that we have a diverse group of members and that we're making sure to reach out to everyone in our community and invite them in and provide the best service possible. And then from communications, they'll work hand in hand with our marketing team to manage our emails and mostly email management. So it's rolling out the communications about everything going on with our chapter. And then the really exciting opportunities are our open committee positions. And you don't need to have any experience. You could be brand new to our chapter and join a committee. And the committee is the stepping stone to be on a board panel. So right now, we are looking for nominations according to our bylaws, which will also come in the email to you. We request that someone joining our executive board of directors has spent some time on a committee. So if you're looking to join the board in the future, in the near future, joining a committee is the first step. So right now we have corporate memberships available, individual membership, marketing, our new belonging committee, and events supporting Megan, who you've met tonight. So all of these are opportunities. And if there's a committee that we don't have that you'd like to start, we are open to it. Really just looking to get as many people engaged as we can. And there will be an email to email our current secretary, Trish Gregovich, your nominations, and just to make sure that you get those in by November 16th. So I know that was a lot of information. It will be coming in an email. And thank you so much for coming. If you aren't a member, Megan will drop the link in the chat again about how to become a member of our chapter. If you want to talk about it and kind of learn more about what we do, please reach out to any of us on the board, reach out to our info email address on our website, and we'll get back to you and jump on the phone and tell you all about it. So that's it. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Megan, for planning such an incredible event. I will see you all at our next event, which Megan will tell you about.
Thank you, Ariel. One more time, the Belonging Committee is having their event on October 27th. Please watch out for that. And we'll have a fun networking scavenger hunt show and tell event beginning of November. Keep your eyes peeled for the save the date. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you again to Jessica, to Cindy, to Liz, and to Katie, and Ariel, of course. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.